All right, good morning, everybody. 8 a.m. Love starting off the morning at the conference. Thank you for joining us. On behalf of my co-speakers, Linda Regan, Laura Hobson, love it. 8 a.m. Whoops, yes, this is going to be fun. And Michael Gisandi, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately. I want to thank you for coming to this session. This is a session that we have been doing in some form of another. I mean, originally with Mike and I in the residency realm for 10 years, and then I'd say over the last 3 or 4 years in particular. And it holds a place near and dear to our hearts just in so much as we are all trying to strive and construct our way through our medical careers, and having a way to know who I am, what I care about, what decisions to make, what's the best choice for me, I think will be a helpful framework for this. And putting it in terms of branding, we feel really is quite functional for that. So let me kind of jump on in here. These are going to be our 3 objectives. So we're going to talk about a model of brand management, right? It'll be taken from the business and consumer literature and apply it to physician professional identity formation or professional development, if you want to think of it that way. We want to help you start walking through creating your own authentic brand. And in the end, we're going to talk about how this can be practically applied, things like promotion, career fulfillment, reputation management, etc. You see this QR code at the top. In our normal form of these sessions, we will have peppered in a number of exercises where we stop and work our way through each step of this process. Given the time limitations of what it's like at a conference here and the time that we have to fit this into, we have all of the exercises available online. This is a great reflective exercise to do when you have time and space, and walking your way through what we call a brand audit, which let me go dive right into that shortly. So that is our goal today. We want to help you have or conduct what is called a brand audit in terms of professional sense. The first step will be figuring out who I am. What is my brand identity? This will be an act of articulating your authentic self, not wishful or not necessarily idealized, but your authentic self. The next one will be the brand experience. So what am I doing to take this identity and project it outward to others so they can see me for who I am? And then lastly, what is the image, which in effect boils down to how do other people see me? What do the people I care about reaching, which functionally we'll call consumers, what is their image of me? And ideally, you can see this will match up with my images of me as well. We don't have any disclosures. We will mention a number of brands, and for anybody else who's doing a talk here today, we had to pare down some of those images here because of the no-nos notifications. But the point of them will not be to endorse, but to use them as a point of reference as we do some thought exercises. So what is a brand? Let's just start with the basics. It's a core value of a product that distinguishes, it's a real keyword, distinguishes it from competitors to a specific target audience. It could be a name, a term, an identifier, a symbol, a feature. It could be any number of things, but it's an abstract concept in that way. And it creates value. The concept of a well-built brand is that, yes, it's a thing, it's a product. That product has, as an artifact, as a tool, can do something. But the above and beyond presumption of its quality, it's good, I want that, I will pay different for that in the economics literature, that's what a brand brings. This is, or at least was, the world's most recognizable brand. I will not name it, I will not describe it to you, but you all implicitly have assumptions or thoughts about this the moment you see it. Maybe it's cool tech stuff, maybe it's a weird obsession with black turtlenecks, maybe it's the idea that there are some labor protection issues, maybe it's human rights, maybe it's privacy. There's all of these choices that may come to mind, but I didn't tell you those things. Those came into your mind already because you have formed a brand image of this brand. And the point of that goes to show these are abstractions that are already built in. People in our community already have that of us. So you're working from a position where there's presumably some already image of you, but what you can do to shape that image is the big goal. Strong brand has power, right? I talked about this value, and the difference is that on the left is generic coffee and on the right is the brand. So people are willing to walk past the generic coffee for the brand, even if it's the same thing, and pay triple, right? That assumption, because it comes with specific things that it identifies about me as a consumer and what I identify about that brand in the public space. And so let's go do a little comparison quickly. So that brand of coffee, we can see and imagine that. But let's say, what about a physician? Is a physician a brand? So let's break it down. Starbucks wants to be a fancy coffee place. They want to be seen as the place you go to for fancy coffee. They want people to go, they want to attract people who see themselves as connoisseurs, right? That I'm getting the good coffee. I'm getting this kind of roast and this single origin bean. You can make a strong argument that they sort of lost that because other places have caught up and taken on that role, but that's what they wanted to do. And what do? Well, they make these fancy, like non-English cup sizes, right? Because it sounds fancier. They will have specific store decor lighting. You know, I can blindfold you and throw you in a Starbucks without you seeing the sign, and you'll know you're in a Starbucks the moment you're in it. And it has right the sources of beans, where they come from, and what island, and what temperature, and what climate, and terroir. So, what about on a physician side? Well, there's lots of products that we offer. It could be patient care, it could be our scholarly output, teaching, mentorship, thought leadership, you name it. We can have lots of audiences if you really break it down in that sense. Our patients, our supervisors, our learners, hospital administration, the lay public, any one of these would count. And then what can we do? Well, the amount of time that I spend with a patient can dictate what patients think of me. What I put out into the world here, coming and doing this talk, will help shape the image of what you think of me. So presentations, the sound gods are unhappy. The way they form interpersonal connections, clinical metrics, et cetera. These are all things that I can choose to enact or to influence the way that others will think of me. So in that sense, I get it. I think we work in an altruistic profession, and the concept of branding implicitly feels like capitalist and rapacious, and it doesn't have to be. I would call it a morally neutral approach to things, and in the economic sphere, it's obviously meant towards the profit margin. But for you, I want to ask you this: in a session like this, give yourself some grace. For the next 50 minutes, it is okay to focus on you. And the other part about that being, it's honestly, this is a self-guided exercise masquerading as self-promotion. It really is meant to figure out who you are and what you really care and value, and then putting those values at the forefront of your decision-making process and making sure other people can see and understand those. So if you don't like the term branding, that doesn't work for you. As I said, think of it as professional identity. This is a professional identity exercise. And even, just as an aside about the whole, in the economics literature or in business world, it really is just about selling things. But in reality, even they recognize the point of a brand is not to look good on the outside. The brand is the reward. When you do the hard work and you create a product that is of value and you find the right audience and you communicate to that audience its value, when you do everything right, then a strong brand comes from that, rather than just trying to work on the outside of looking good, sounding good, appearing like you might know what you're doing without having the strong underlying fundamentals of something you bring to the equation. So with that, let me go over the 3 principles of branding science one more time. There will be brand identity, who I am, and that plus brand experience will equal brand image. Very quickly, a little run through, and then we're going to have very specific a series of exercises that my colleagues will get through. Brand identity is an example of who I am and what I am. Now, granted that they may be starting to close down their funding, so this example is starting to lose its way, but this is the mission of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This is what they will use to decide their funding practices. So does it further this idea of a healthy, productive life in the rest of the world? That will then be the guidance that makes a choice of who gets money, who doesn't get money, where do we show up, what do we support, et cetera. And having that clarity means that they can then use that as a guide amongst a large group of people to make their decisions. From a brand experience perspective, it's like, what am I doing to shape perspectives that others have of me? So the same anecdote I always tell in Southwest, when it first came out, was the low-cost airline. And in fact, that was their brand, the capital THE low-cost airline. So there's this perhaps apocryphal story of a young executive who sources out this whole process of like, hey, I can get these like gourmet chicken sandwiches served to every customer for only like $7. Great deal. It's like half the price of what it would be if you go retail, and brings it to the board. And the CEO just says one question is like, does that further our goal of being the low-cost airline? So that $7 extra may be a great deal for that chicken sandwich, but is not what they're aiming to do. So they wisely say no to that and say, that's not what we're going to do. We will cut every possible way to make the price as low as it can go. And the allegory for all of us is we can say yes to a lot of things that may be good or not, but is it really what furthers what we care about in our sense in our careers? And then finally, the concept of brand image really just gets at the idea of like, what is it that people say when you're not there, right? What is the true thoughts and feelings that others have of you? And may not always be knowable, but you can do a lot of things to try and shape that, or at least try to understand it and then determine what has to be done. So again, this will be the model that we follow. And our practical application gets to this concept here, which is We would argue that if your three concepts here are misaligned, right, your image doesn't match what people think of you in terms of what your real identity is, then I think you're going to be far more prone towards burnout. You're going to be far more closer to feeling just adrift in your career, like I'm spinning my wheels and not making progress. But when these align, then it's a different story because then you start knowing what to say yes or no to, right? That age-old question, is it part of the area of my career or is it something that gets me promoted? Well, frankly, if you do it in a values or an identity-based way, you're going to have a much better idea what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And that will help you identify a passion, which will then lead directly into a career niche. It will help you with the promotion and advancement activities. And especially if they align with your interests. And then we'd make the argument that when you are doing the things that you care about in a deeper level, you're going to have a far more fulfilling career. So that said, this will be the steps of our audit. And let me hand over to Laura for brand identity.
So we're going to spend a little bit of time trying to facilitate some thoughts about your own personal identity. In the medical literature, in the medical education literature, it is often referred to as something called professional identity formation. And you're going to see that there are a lot of parallels beyond to what is called here brand identity. So the term identity, if you look at the official definition, is really the sense of self that comes from your own personal attributes, whether they be social, cultural, ethnic, physical, as well as sort of these more ephemeral attributes about what you value and believe in and how you see yourself. This is how these are all merged into one personal identity, whether it be in the brand consumer sense or in the professional sense, as we really want you to start thinking about this. So I'm going to have you talk a little bit about who you are to your neighbor and introduce yourself. 15 seconds. Go ahead.
Real quick. Here's the thing, all the time when we have those pauses, it just looks dramatic rather than panic. It does. I gotta learn about that. Oh, that was the other thing. Did I modulate my rate of speech?
Yes.
Okay.
Much better than some of the ones.
Yeah. It is the long running problem.
Very
Okay.
no extraneous written words. Yeah.
All right.
All right, a little longer than 15 seconds. We lied first off. So anyone want to share how they introduce themselves? A lot of roles. Yeah. So how did you introduce yourself?
So, since we had the format of the conference led off with name, what I do at my institution, and then kind of went into more about kind of like, oh, dog mom, this is what I like to do. And so the professional identity came first, the personal identity came second.
Yeah. Anyone else have insights that they want to share? So we're defined, I didn't set you up as a plant, but thank you very much. So we're really defining ourselves in many ways by what our external affiliations are. Hi, I'm Laura Hobson. I'm this rank individual at this institution, right? We all start that way. That's our habit. I want you to do this again, and we're going to make it harder. Now I want you to introduce yourself to someone else at the table. You cannot use your title, your role, your training background, or your academic rank. Take a few minutes and think about how you want to do that and try it out with someone else at the table.
I thought Dave was quitting. I know. Yeah, it's good.
I mean, yes, I agree.
The small group, the small tables thing, God, it makes such a difference.
It really is. I agree.
It was basically mama bear. Like I think you could like call it like mama bear, like mother slash maternal, whatever, nurture. Build on that however you want. But basically, yeah, that's a great example. Wait, that's not mine. That's hers. Yeah.
Okay, thoughts on this exercise? How did it feel for you?
I think it's just really area and just discussing things that aren't immediately academic in nature, but also just engenders more of the person that you're hearing from and more about yourself.
So it made it feel more real. Easier or harder? Easier. Yeah.
On the other side of this conversation, it's so large, and so where it's just something really lovely to talk about, personal attributes, something we learn to talk about professional stuff.
Yeah. So it felt more authentic to you. As a wonderful example, we did this for a faculty development group at another institution, and someone immediately said, I'm a mama bear. And it's like, whoa, what does that mean? She's like, I'm a mother in real life. I'm a pediatrician, so my role is to fight for and defend my patient and protect my patients. And I run an educational program, so my trainees fall into that. And it's like, wow, what a succinct conceptualization of all domains of her life. And that was how she saw herself and really conceptualized her brand. And I think we can all think about who we are. It may be different in our professional life and our personal life to some degree, but hopefully we're all able to find some unifying themes between those worlds of our life. So we talked already a bit about our use of external identifiers. These are important. These are often how people see us. These are how we're reflected in the world. But we would also like to make sure we give attention and strong attention to sort of our internal identifiers. What do we value? What do we believe? Why are we here? You know, those sort of higher level questions that are often so important. Anyone here a fan of Simon Sinek? The why. So here's our inner purpose and identifying that. So let's think about what these elements may be. And we're going to challenge you guys, if you use the QR code, we've got this all held in a Google Doc so that you have easily reference. And we just had a manuscript accepted on this, so there are a couple sources that you can find that'll take you back through some of these exercises after the fact. So skills, values, beliefs, purpose, all wind up to BS. You can read the definitions here. I'm not going to read them out to you guys. And what I want you to do is take just a really fast minute and think about one of these and write down what you want to think about, or do the real thing, which is snap a picture of it, and put this in your homework. And I want you to work through the identity component of each of these intangible elements that are known only to us after we finish this section. Good? So once again, the brand identity should be your authentic self. And sometimes it's easier to think about who you're not. And also think about defining things that you need to let go. So let's think about our anti-skills as another exercise. So in the spirit of, let's do another really fast sharing, let's all think about our anti-skills really fast and share something that you don't value from the first one. We're going to stick with skills rather than values. But take literally 1 minute and share something from this category with your table.
What was it? Say that again? Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes these things, sometimes it's easier to it helps us define ourselves by thinking about who we're not and bring things into greater clarity. You do not ask me to plan social events. I am the person who it is like physical freaking torture to make me go socialize at a cocktail hour. That I'm okay with that. I'll find someone else to do it. But it may also be important to recognize that, to realize I've intentionally put it away. And in fact, I was in a situation where I had to socialize recently, and several people who knew me very well were like, wow, you can do that if you want. We were impressed. And it's like, great, thanks. Nice to know I'm becoming predictable. But you know what? I have a bit of a brand identity, don't I? This is my true authentic self. I don't love big group socialization, whether or not that's, totally who I am. That's okay. That's my authentic self. I can do it if I need to. We need to be realistic about it. And this is going to be the bedrock of what we build our professional brand on as to who we are. And we want it to be authentic because, yet again, we're going to say that a strong brand is the result of this work. It's not the cause of your identity. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague to talk a little bit about how we think about our own brand.
Excellent. I really want to emphasize that point, what Laura said. I think we all have this tendency to think of brand as the best way to present yourself. In reality, it's the best, what you're trying to be able to do is know yourself and represent that. All right, so brand experience. We want to now figure out how we're going to project this concept outward. What are the things we can do about that? That's what we want to aim to do with a brand experience. I want others to be able to know who I am, and I have influence over that. I have agency, I have actions I can take that will influence the way other people see me. I can be the really fast lecture speaker, or I can be much more modulated as I speak. It can all go, the way that people will interpret that is entirely based on each of these perceptions that I do actually control. So a brand experience is any action that influences how others experience your brand, which you could just say is experience you, but experience the thing you want to project or you're aiming to have others understand about you. Think of it as a delivery device. What are the things that I can do as an action that can deliver my brand to others in the way that I want them to experience it? And I really want to emphasize the fact that you have control. This is what you can do. You are not merely subject to the whims of the world and things that happen to you. You have choices in the way that you present and articulate yourself to the world, and therefore can shape the way that the world sees you. You don't control everything, and you may have to react to things that you don't expect, but you have options here. And so what we want you to be able to do is be deliberate. Consider the ways you want to show yourself and your authentic identity to others. What you need is to be able to stop and think, well, who are those others? Who are my consumers? I think it is a useful term to describe that, even if we're not in an economic realm. And then what are the actions that I want to do to reach those consumers? And they may be different groups of people, as I'll explain in a moment. So let's figure that out. Now, if we go back in time, this is baby Jeremy. I was once upon a time a residency director. I was, better hairline, less beard. And at that time, I had this identity. This is what I would like to say. Like, I want to be present, basically show up. I want to try whatever it is. I want to make my best effort, and I want to give a damn. So care, right? Show up, try, care. And so when it comes to the residents, these would be the things I would try to do. I'd be focusing on how to make them happy and hardworking. And for applicants, I wanted to find ways to use that to attract to my program. For faculty, man, it's a chore in residency leadership to try and get people to give me their time. So my job, and Silas knows this very well, was to try my best to entice people as best as I can to be participatory, and so on and so forth. Each of these groups are who I try to reach, but I would still be starting from the same basis. The mama bear example, right? You can be maternal to learners, you can be maternal to patients, you can be maternal even to colleagues. Maybe she is the planner of their group, right? So all of that can be a way it manifests, but with very different people and through technically different actions each time. Now let's go change it. Now I'm grizzled Jeremy, longer in the tooth, shorter in hair. And this is what I still have the same basic point here. And I started a new job about 1.5 years ago. And now I'm not a residency director. So what I really care about with the residents is helping them build their clinical skills and problem solving. To me, that's like the try hard part. That's the really give a damn. Patients, I really care about spending the right amount of time so they feel like, oh, okay, I get it. When I hear people able to tell me that in return is when I think I've done the right amount. So on and so forth. I want my faculty here to be able to trust me at sign out. That's a big one that matters to me, and also trust what I take from them at sign out. And I want to be the person who, if I can, I will give coverage on the hope that when I need it, I will receive coverage. And so on and so forth here, right? To my chair, who's not here, thankfully. I don't want to be a problem child, right? That's my goal. I just don't, for him, I don't want to be the person that he thinks of like, oh, geez, it's another email from Branzetti again. And I'm sure those who are in leadership here know exactly who pops to mind when I say that. So, right? And other scholars, I want to be a thought leader, and I want to be able to be someone who can write really well. And that's something I really, really focus on. So the point being, these are the things that actions I take to different groups of people, but they still come from the same place. So for you, this is a home exercise, again, to try and keep us on time so you get the full experience here. Who are your consumers? Who do you want to be affected by the work that you do? Whose opinions matter to you? Who do you have to interact with regularly, right? You may not like them, but you have to work with them, and the interaction you have with them matters. And who makes decisions about you, right? Who makes decisions about whether you got the good office or the bad office? Who makes decisions about your non-clinical time? Who makes decisions about getting you that little extra support if you're thinking, maybe I want to get a master's? And how do you make yourself known to them in a positive way from your brand so that you're more likely to have that positive influence later on? And then what do you want them to know? You don't have to be everything to everyone. That is really a key takeaway from what we mentioned before, where you're not trying to be this, I'm a great researcher and a great educator and the best clinician. Yes, strive to be best in better in everything, but you're not going to be the best in everything. And if you try to spread out your focus so diffusely, you're going to wind up being nothing in particular to anybody. So figure out what parts of your identity you want to be able to have to them to know, and what you want to shape in their minds, and then you interact with them through specific actions. So what could you do, right? We talked about this before. There's a whole list of stuff here, right? I could basically my clinical work, my scholarly output, my citizenship in my department. How do I write for the lay press? What's my personality? What's my demeanor? I like my complaint to solution ratio, right? Like, am I making sure my solutions are higher than my complaints? And like on my end, do I finish my charts on time and my Q path is done, or are they constantly emailing me that I'm not finishing that, right? These are all things that will shape the identity that others have of me, and I have agency. I can do something about each of these things. So we're going to use an example from our friend Mike here, right? I want to focus on the two concepts here of presentation and social media. So this is Mike Gisandi, who would have been our fourth here, who couldn't make it today. Mike likes to call this the black shirt photo, right? This is the photo that he has. It is his favorite photo, and he makes sure that this is everywhere. This is the thing that will represent him at all times. Now, Mike didn't go and get filler for a photo. He didn't spend $3,000 on a very fancy photo shoot. He's not airbrushing it. I'm not talking about the aesthetics here in terms of I'm trying to be as attractive or like in that sense. But it's the photo that represents him is a good quality photo. You can clearly see who he is, and he is going to make sure that it's everywhere you can possibly have it, for consistency, so people know exactly who he is. And it's the subtlety of being able to have that, like, I know that guy. I see him at a conference. I'm going to talk to him because I saw this article. Or, oh, yeah, that's somebody who looks put together, right? Like it or not, we have that thought process that makes a difference in how we make small little bit of decisions of, should I reach out to that person, or do I think they know what they're talking about? And this stuff matters. So finding the thing for you. What is an ideal professional photo? Do you guys know they do free headshots here at SAEM? Right? So go look in your app. There is if you go look up headshots, they will do it. They did it last year. They're doing it again. Go and get your free headshot, right? And maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but take advantage of those choices. Many of you at your home institution, they probably do this too. So select it, go find where you are online, which is also a great thing to do just to make sure that there isn't a message or something representing you that you don't want to have out there. And then replace that with your preferred photo and apply it to social media, right? So therefore you have a consistent representation. That's the way I would frame that. Mike, the second thing here is this concept of reputation. He likes to talk about how, I can be the researcher who knows about this little bit of telomere on this one little chromosome, and I can go to the conference of little telomeres on one little chromosome, and I can be the keynote speaker of the one little telomere. But that platform of that group is pretty small. And if you break it out and start rethinking of promotion, we think of reputation as a big part, right? As you go up the professoriate ladder. But that's another way to think of as platform. So the more I can reach others will help me with my reputation, something that is important in our promotion metrics. So there is a lot of resources he likes. I want to make sure I keep this in here on his behalf, that the idea of using platform is the idea of compelling product and a meaningful success in business is from a compelling product and meaningful platform. And you can draw that association to academic scholarship and output. Compelling scholarship plus dissemination is what's going to get you reputation. So what are the things that you can do with that? Well, the whole idea here is you want to be seen. You want to be able to get your things out there, and the things that are, again, authentically you. It's not just blabber on about stuff so people see you. It's not just clicks. It's not in a non-specific way, but it is starting with the base of your knowledge and skill and expertise and your identity, and then building a platform that gets it to other people so they can see what that knowledge and skill and activities are. So one great example of sharing this is a paper that we did, 2012-ish, 2013, give or take. And okay, great. You want to be able to see if you want to be able to reach more people with your work. So if you go on these, you have various social media choices, and you can create the symbol of a tweet or whatever the hell it's called these days. So you can just share the article, right? Great. It's an article. It's out there. There are bajillions of these things being thrown out at all time. Why is anybody's eyes going to go to this article, and what's going to make them want to read it, right? What's the capture of that? So let's take it up a notch here. If you go into you go into the article, you find that you directly share. So that brings up the metric of viewership. So that's useful in promotion later on. And then you'll be able to, let me just get through the different ways that you can do that. And then, okay, great. So now I could share the article. Here's a big link to it. Not exactly enticing. We care about the work, but what makes you care about that? All right, let's go a little bit way. I can now reach more people by putting the appropriate markers of tagging people, tagging the journal, and being able to describe the title a little better and much more abbreviated so it doesn't feel like just one giant link. Or now I can put a little bit of a different teaser in here. Are they competing for bedside procedures? Are we losing out on that? That's an open question that probably reaches a lot more people. And that's going to then reach my platform further so others will then engage with what I did. I'm not selling a fake thing. It is a work that I made, and I want other people to see it, and I'm trying to think of the best ways to get other people to see it. So gaining visibility in a very crowded world is a way to think about that. So for you, very simple part. One, you all at your institutions, I promise you, have a professional bio that's been posted. May or may not have been written by you. Probably starting to get written by AI at this point. So go and check in what it says about you. What is your bio? Does it represent your authentic identity and the things that you want other people to have? Use your brand identity that you cultivated in earlier exercises to get that out there. As we did before with the photo exercise, Google every website and go find where your profiles are posted. Is it at SAEM in the profile here? When you other conferences, other endeavors that you do, if you work with other groups, make sure that you have the consistency of what you at least want to represent to that group. It doesn't have to be the same bio, right, or the same profile. What I want to do to reach a perhaps patient-centered group, so what is going to be read on a website at my institution, is different than what I'm going to put in the SAEM app. They're not going to be exactly the same because those are two different audiences. But figure out all those instances, replace them, and even consider the personal website. I have mine, and if you Google me, we cut it out here to try and make this quick, but if you Google me, the whole first page of Google is my, like, parts of my website. So I have now controlled my image and how people see me. Nobody gets past the first page. So if there's some weird thing later of the healthgrade.com of some patient at one point who was really pissed at me, it's now pushed to page 2 because I have exerted control of this by having my own website. Not saying like fake things, but I've at least put this out forward and can control what is the way I want people to see me. All right, again, key takeaways. You have agency. You have the ability to determine how you are experienced by others. You can't exactly control the way that they experience you, but you have the way to reach them. You can bring your brand to them in the best light possible. So figure out who you want to reach and then be intentional. Think of brand experience as delivery devices to deliver your brand to other people. All right. So back into the main group here, and I'll turn it over to Linda to take us through to the end.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to continue talking, and we're going to end talking about brand image and wrap that up a little bit to focus on how you can implement that in your real life in like, what's the whole point? Why'd you sit here? And how can it make a difference for you? Okay, so you saw the definition earlier. Brand image is how others perceive you. And so the first time we gave this talk, we were in Scotland, which was a really cool place to give a talk. And I thought, okay, I'm giving a talk in Scotland. I should use something Scottish in my talk. And so I was like, Scottish whiskey. So I realized I don't know anything about Scottish whiskey because I don't drink Scottish whiskey. And my husband drinks bourbon, which I realized now down a rabbit hole, there's all different American this. And I was like, oh my gosh, all I need is a freaking Scottish whiskey. And I thought, I feel like one time out at a bar, my chair, who I think is a refined guy, maybe ordered Macallan, but then I was like, maybe that was a James Bond movie. I don't know. But it's the only thing I knew. And so that's what I would go and get, right? Based on absolutely no personal experience at all with Scottish whiskey. And in fact, Macallan is the best single malt Scottish whiskey. But if you go to Scotland, it's something called the famous Grouse, which is a blended Scottish whiskey, just FYI. But I mean, the point here is that I have thoughts and memories and images and historical connection to something based on something I have no personal connection with. So that's important to remember. So let's, remember if you're the cat, but you want to be the lion, when your behavior is like hiding under the bed and sitting in the box, nobody is going to see you as the lion. I don't think anyone would think that's the case. So this cat's personal identity of wanting to be a lion is not being manifest in its behavior. All right, quick, first thought. What do you think? First expectation of this guard. Don't touch. What else? Don't move. They stand there. They don't do anything, right? I mean, that is what they are known for. I've never gone up and spoken to the King's Guard and been like, hey, are you known for standing still for long periods of time and not moving? But in fact, it is the thing they are known for. If you ask 100 people, like 97 of them who didn't watch weird videos on YouTube about them will say that the thing they know about them is that they stand still and don't move. Oh, I'm so sorry. Am I deafening you in the back of the room? Okay. So just remember that there can be very, very, very clear expectations, snap judgments, because whatever the experience is that you've had will lead to a reputation that's associated with that person or that brand. So I'm going to ask you, how does your gut emotion influence your opinion on what expectation you would have of this person? You expecting good things or bad things? Wow, no one? Good things, okay. So on this slide, where I would have showed you other people that I wasn't allowed to in case they sued SAEM for using their pictures, if I showed you a picture of Hannibal Lecter, good things or bad things? Bad things, maybe, right? I don't know, he was sort of fun in the movie, but like overall, probably not a great guy. The expectation of what he would be doing probably would be bad, although he might be sort of cool. What if I showed you, Derek and Meredith Shepard from Grey's Anatomy? People are like, oh, they're the couple, the love couple. No couple will ever be as good as that couple, right? So you've never met these people. You have like a viewpoint of what was created of them intentionally in some places because they're on TV or in a movie, and unintentionally in other places because of their behaviors. So remember that the actual view of what it is that you're taking away and what you think about that brand, that could be you, is going to lead to expectations of what you do and what people will expect that you do. So this is the Johari window. It was created in the 50s by psychologists to help people learn about themselves, introspection, and have better communication. And so, as you can see, it's a 2x2 plot where one side is things that you know about yourself and the other side is things that people know about you. And clearly, the area, the open area, right, this is stuff you know that everyone knows about you. Okay, that's great. And then there's stuff that no one knows about you. So we're going to leave those two away because those are probably pretty easy. What we really care about is this one area first, right? What's hidden? What do I know about myself now that I've discovered what my identity is, what I really want people, what I want people to know about me, but in reality don't know about me? And how do I then create, put forth, experience for others that will get people to that same knowledge that I have about who I am. But even more importantly, the blind spot, right? This is what people know about you that is not known to you. So this is your reputation. This is, as Jeremy said, what people talk about or say about you when you're not in the room. Okay, so this is extraordinarily important because this can help us be aware of how we are being perceived, what people believe about us, and it sometimes is a scary thing to think about, like, do I want to know what people think about me that I don't know about, that they already know? And the answer is yes, okay? Jeremy already talked about a lot of different ways that you can get feedback. And many of these may be in areas that are important to you based on your brand identity, and many of them may be things that are less important to you. There's so many different ways that you can obtain metrics to give feedback about how you're being perceived. But one thing that we were doing our talk, when we did our talk, we were looking at all these different ways that you could do a brand audit of yourself. And one of them was to have someone write your obituary. And I thought that was a little morbid. And so the next option on the page was to have them write your retirement speech. So how interesting would that be to ask a trusted colleague who you believe knows you very well to write a retirement speech? Why? Because in a retirement speech, that should highlight the most important things about you, who you are, and what you did in your life, right? That's like the big picture summary. So it's one thing to think about, I don't know if you want to know the blind spot, but if you do, there are lots of ways that you can get that information. So for home exercise, you're going to ask yourself, what do you really know about your brand image? For a consumer, what do you know about what patients think about you? What do you know about what residents think about you? What do you know about what your chair thinks about you? What data do you need to better understand that image if you don't know what the answers to those questions are? And who do you trust to give you honest and usable feedback? And that can be hard, right? If you're anxious that what's out there isn't good about you, going to ask someone to be honest and tell you what that information is opens you up in a very vulnerable way. But at the same time, it allows you to have control back in your place to try to realign who you are and who you want to be with how people are seeing and experiencing you. So in summary, key learning point, brand image represents the whole of what people think about you. And although this may be never fully knowable to you, there are lots of data points that exist to help you be able to find out what that is. Branding is a science. Brand identity is your authentic professional identity. Brand experience represents all of the actions that you do or could do to shape how people are going to perceive you. And then that perception ultimately ends in brand image, which is what people think about you after they've experienced you in those experiences of your brand experience. So just a reminder, brand identity, who am I, brand experience, what am I projecting, and brand image, is that what they see of me? So 3 practical things to think about. Let's talk about academic promotion. So I get asked all the time, should I say yes to this? Should I do this? Should I not do this, right? So if you know who you are and what's important to you, unless it's essential to do because you can't get promoted without it, maybe it allows you some ability to say, you know what, is this gonna get am I only doing this to get me promoted? Or am I doing this because it aligns with what I value? And as you become a little bit more past, the first couple years of your career where you're like saying yes to everything, you really should be saying yes to things that align with who you are and what you do. Because remember, the promotion guidelines about reputation, right? Do you have national reputation or international reputation? Is really the expectation of brand image. And you have the ability to identify your niche and really create what that piece is that is seen, and choose activities that will both help you be seen for that brand identity, but also will help you because it aligns with things that you value. What about reputation management? So remember, reputation is brand image. We talked about a brand audit, being able to guide you very systematically through whether or not what you think about your identity matches your brand image. And this gives power back into your court to allow you to take control over what your reputation is, what people think about you, as opposed to that being passively controlled by events around you. And lastly, career fulfillment. Jeremy touched on this at the beginning, but just as a reminder, factors shown to decrease burnout and improve career satisfaction. A robust professional identity, practice that aligns with personal values, experiencing autonomy, time spent in meaningful activities, looking at your life and your actions and what you do via a branding approach, aligning those activities, which will be the experiences that people then will have with you, with your brand identity, can promote all of these. So we're gonna say thank you so much for coming out early to hear us and participate in some exercises. There's the code to scan for your homework sheet. And I think we have like a minute if there's any questions. Should all go to the education keynote. It's going to be phenomenal. She's my co-faculty. I'm biased, but it is going to be phenomenal. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.